First we make a table, and we'll give it one attribute. Let's call it step. And we're going to give it a formula, and that formula is random pick of -1, 1. That is, each of our steps is going to be either -1 or +1. We get two cases. We see this time they're both -1s, and if I go over here to collection, I can see that re-randomize is clover Y. So I press clover Y repeatedly, and you can see that sometimes these numbers change. Now we want to know how far we've gone during our entire walk. So I open up my collection by double-clicking, and I see my cases panel, but I'm interested in the measures panel. I'm going to create a measure called N, which is going to be the total number of cases, and a measure called End, which is going to be the place where we end. The formula for N, as in November, as in number, is count. And I can just use an empty parenthesis here, and that will count how many steps we've taken. End is going to be the sum of step. I click OK, and I can see that the sum is 0, which is correct. If I re-randomize a few more times, clover Y, clover Y, clover Y, clover Y, you can see that end updates. I'm also going to create another measure called distance. And that's going to be the absolute value of end. That is, how far am I from 0 at the end of the walk? If the end were -2, I'd be 2 from 0, and we want this measure distance to reflect that. Next, we're going to collect these measures. I right-click on the collection itself and choose Collect Measures from the pop-up menu. Fathom creates a new collection called Measures from Collection 1. If I make a table of this, notice it's selected. I'm going to create a new table. I see that I have 5 cases. The distances are either 2 or 0. End was -2 or 2 or 0. And N, of course, is always 2. There were always 2 steps. Let's make a graph of this. So I'm just going to make a graph of end because that's kind of interesting. I see I had 3 2s, 1 0, and 1 -2. Of course, having 5 measures doesn't tell us a lot, so I'm going to turn animation off, and I'll make a total of 200 measures by getting 195. I click Collect More Measures, and shazam, here's my graph of end. It looks like I have about twice as many zeros as I do -2s or 2s, which is exactly what theory predicts. At this point in the handout, we ask you to create a number of measures, not in this collection, Collection 1, but in this collection, Measures from Collection 1. This is my inspector for this collection, and I'm going to click on its Measures panel. The first one I'm supposed to make is called PCT5 for the 5th percentile. Its formula is percentile of 5, end. And this tells us the 5th percentile of end, which of course is -2. That's where that percentile is. We're going to make a similar one per percentile of 95. The next one is going to be the difference between these divided by 2. We're going to call it MOE for margin of error. And this is PCT 95 minus PCT of 5 divided by 2. That's the classic margin of error. And of course, it's actually 2. Now I'm going to create MAD, the mean absolute deviation. And that is the mean of distance. It's actually the mean of the distance from the mean, but we know the mean is supposed to be 0. So I'm just using mean of distance. And now we're going to make SD, which is going to be our standard deviation. And that, I'm going to go ahead and do the actual population standard deviation. but you could use S. So that's a standard deviation of end. And that's 1.42702 at the moment, which is shockingly close to the square root of 2. Finally, we need a measure that will keep track of what the sample size was. You could think I could just put n in here, but since this is a measure, I need what's called an aggregate formula. And so if I just put in mean of n, I will get 2.